AITA for exposing my wife after she chose a hotel stay over our son's funeral? I'm Dylan, 36, and until that week, I was just a husband trying to keep what was left of my family from collapsing after our son, Liam, died. He had been 5 for less than 3 months. There was still a drawing from his daycare stuck to our refrigerator with a green dinosaur magnet. It showed 3 crooked people holding hands under a purple sun. Liam had labeled us in shaky block letters, Dad, Mom, me. Every morning after he died, I still opened the cabinet where we kept his cereal bowls. My hand would hover over the blue one with the chipped rim before my brain caught up. Brooke was 34, my wife and Liam's mother. For the first few days after we lost him, I defended everything she did and everything she refused to do. When she stayed in bed with the curtains closed, I told people she needed rest. When she ignored calls from the funeral home, I said she couldn't handle details. When she refused to help choose the photo for the funeral program, I said looking at pictures was too painful. When my sister Paige asked why Brooke kept leaving the room whenever anyone mentioned the service, I told her, people don't grieve the same way. I believe that. I still do. Grief can make one person talk nonstop and another person unable to speak. It can make you sleep for 14 hours or stare at the ceiling until sunrise. It can make you angry at people who bring food because the smell reminds you that your body is still functioning when someone else's isn't. What grief does not do is book a resort with another man and charge the spa to the account your family is using to bury your child. But I didn't know that yet. The funeral home called me 2 days before the service and left a voicemail asking me to confirm the photo for the printed program. I listened to the message 3 times because hearing the words, "Your son's service," still made everything feel unreal. Brooke was sitting at the kitchen table when I came in. She had a mug between both hands, but the coffee had gone cold. "They need the final photo," I said. She stared at the table. "I picked the one from his birthday," I continued. "The one where he's missing the front tooth. I can't do this. I'm not asking you to do anything. I just need to know if you're okay with the picture." She pushed the mug away so hard that coffee sloshed over the rim. "Why does everything have to be a decision with you?" I remember blinking at her. "It's a funeral program, Brooke." "Exactly." She stood and left the room. At the time, I felt guilty. I thought maybe I sounded too practical, too cold. I had been surviving through checklists because the alternative was falling apart. Call the funeral home. Sign the paperwork. Pick the clothes. Choose the photo. Answer relatives. Find the small envelope with Liam's hospital bracelet. Accept the casseroles people dropped off even though neither of us could eat. Brooke said I made everything feel administrative. She said she needed room to collapse, and I believed my job was to give it to her. So I approved the photo alone. The program was simple. Liam's smiling face was on the front, and inside was a short line about how deeply he was loved. Brooke had refused to help choose the wording, so I used something Liam had once said after I carried him upstairs when he fell asleep on the couch. "Home is where somebody knows how to find you." It hurt to read it, but it sounded like him. The morning of the funeral, Brooke was gone when I woke up. Her side of the bed had not been slept in. I assumed she had moved to the guest room again. She had been doing that on and off since Liam died. I found a note on the kitchen counter. "I need air. Don't call me. I'll meet you there if I can." That last part bothered me. If I can. It was our son's funeral, not a dinner reservation. I called anyway. It went straight to voicemail. I texted her that the service started at 10 and asked her to please tell me where she was. I told her I would come get her. I told her nobody expected her to speak. I told her she could sit in the back, leave early, hold my hand, ignore me, do whatever she needed. No answer. Paige arrived 20 minutes later wearing a black dress and no makeup. She was 31 and usually the kind of person who filled silence before it became uncomfortable. That morning, she barely spoke. She saw the note on the counter. "Where is she?" She needed air. Paige looked at me. "Dylan." She said she might meet us there. "Might. Not today," I said. "Please." Paige pressed her lips together. She picked up the box containing Liam's hospital bracelet and handed it to me. "You forgot this." I put the envelope in my coat pocket, then changed my mind and carried it to the car. I couldn't bring myself to take it inside the funeral home, so I locked it in the glove compartment. My father, Raymond, was waiting near the entrance when we arrived. He was 64, and he had looked older every day since Liam died. He didn't ask where Brooke was. He just took one look at my face and put a hand on my shoulder. Inside, the air smelled faintly like lilies and furniture polish. The casket was smaller than any casket should ever be. That is the only way I know how to describe it. People moved toward me in a slow line, holding sympathy cards and saying things they hoped would help. Some did. Most didn't. I thanked everyone anyway. I kept glancing toward the entrance. At 9:48, my phone buzzed. It was Brooke. I can't be around all that sadness. Please don't turn this into another thing I failed at. I read it twice. Then a second message appeared. You handled everything like a business meeting. I don't feel safe falling apart around you. I was standing 10 feet from our son's casket. For a few seconds, I couldn't hear anything except the blood pounding in my ears. Paige noticed. Is that Brooke? I turned the phone face down because two relatives were walking toward me with a card. She's not coming, I said. Paige's face changed so fast that I thought she might be sick. Where is she? I don't know. Give me your phone. No. Dylan, she cannot do this to you. She's his mother. That's why she should be here. My father stepped closer. Not here, he said quietly. Paige looked at him. Dad, not here. Not today. Then he looked at me. You can be angry tomorrow. Right now, stand up straight for Liam. That was all he said. I put my phone in my pocket and did exactly that. When the service began, I sat in the front row with an empty chair beside me. People noticed. Of course they noticed. Brooke's mother, Diane, arrived a few minutes late and sat on the other side of the aisle. She leaned across before the service started. Where is she? She's not doing well. Diane's eyes filled immediately. I told her she didn't have to be strong. She isn't coming. Diane stared at the empty chair. She's grieving differently, she whispered. I know. That became the sentence I used all morning. Where's Brooke? She's grieving differently. Is she sick? She's not doing well. Should somebody go get her? No. Today is already hard enough. Please leave it alone. I defended her to everyone because I couldn't bear the thought of Liam's funeral turning into a public argument about his mother. During the service, I held the program so tightly that the paper creased across his picture. Paige reached over and loosened my fingers one at a time. Nobody gave a dramatic speech. Nobody needed to. My father said a few words about Liam's laugh and the way he asked the same question 6 times because he wanted to hear 6 different answers. Paige talked about how he believed every delivery truck carried presents. Diane cried so hard she couldn't finish what she had planned to say. Brooke's chair stayed empty. When it was my turn, I stood at the front and looked at Liam's picture instead of the room. I said he loved dinosaurs, pancakes, yellow rain boots, and pressing every elevator button he could reach. I said he thought his mother made the best grilled cheese in the world. That was true. I said he was loved every day of his life. That was true too. I did not say his mother had chosen not to be there. After the final goodbye, people gathered around me outside. Someone handed me a paper plate covered in foil. Someone else asked whether I needed help bringing flowers home. Diane hugged me and said, "Please be patient with Brooke." I said I would. Then I sat in my car for almost 40 minutes without turning the key. The funeral program was on the passenger seat. Liam's hospital bracelet was still in the glove compartment. I took out the envelope, opened it, and held the tiny plastic band between my fingers. My phone buzzed again. Brooke, I need space. You don't get to decide what my grief looks like. Please don't make my absence about you. I stared at the message until the screen went dark. I wanted to call her. I wanted to demand to know where she was. I wanted to say that I had just stood beside our son while she accused me of making the day about myself. Instead, I put the phone down. I was afraid that if I heard her voice, I would either beg her to come home or say something I could never take back. Neither option felt like strength. When I finally got home, the house was full of food. Casseroles crowded the refrigerator. Sympathy cards were stacked beside paper plates on the counter. Someone had left a loaf of banana bread wrapped in plastic. The silence in the house felt heavier than it had that morning. Brooke still wasn't there. I loosened my tie, sat at the kitchen table, and opened my laptop because I needed to make sure the funeral home deposit had posted correctly. Several relatives had sent money to help with memorial expenses, and I was trying to keep track of what had been paid. The funeral home charge was there. So it was an airline charge I didn't recognize. I looked at the date. 3 days earlier. There was also a hotel authorization from that morning. For a moment, I honestly thought the card had been stolen. The amount was too high to be a mistake, and Brooke had the second card. My first thought was that someone had copied the number. My second was that Brooke had booked a room somewhere because she couldn't stay in the house. That hurt, but it still made more sense than the truth. I called the credit card company. The representative was polite. She asked whether I wanted to report the charges as fraudulent. I don't know yet, I said. Can you tell me whether the physical card was used? She explained that the airline purchase had been made online and the hotel charge had been processed using the card on file. She could not give me private details about the reservation, but she confirmed the transactions were not duplicates or delayed postings. Then I noticed another pending charge. A spa. I remember whispering, "No, that has to be fraud." The representative asked me to repeat myself. I told her I needed to speak with the other cardholder before filing a claim. I ended the call and sat there staring at the screen. A notification popped up in our shared household email account. Your stay details. The subject line included the name of the resort. Brooke and I used that email for utility bills, school notices, family subscriptions, and travel confirmations. I opened the message because it had been sent to an account I legally used every day. The reservation listed Brooke as the primary guest. Under additional guest was the name Carter. I knew Carter. Not well, but enough. He had been around at a few social gatherings. Brooke had described him as a friend, somebody who was going through a complicated separation. He was 39, confident in a quiet way, and always seemed a little too interested in whatever Brooke was saying. Months earlier, I had asked whether there was something between them. Brooke laughed. Seriously? Carter. The way she said it made me feel embarrassed for asking. Then she kissed my cheek and told me I was exhausted. I had accepted that answer. Now his name was on a hotel reservation with my wife, and the dates covered the exact days before and after Liam's funeral. I read the confirmation several times, hoping I had misunderstood something. Check-in, the afternoon before the funeral. Check-out, the following day. 2 guests. A room with a balcony. Spa package for 2. I stood up so fast the chair hit the wall. For one wild second, I thought about calling Brooke and telling her I knew. Then my father's voice came back to me. Don't give anger the steering wheel. I took screenshots. I downloaded the email as a PDF. I saved the credit card statement. I forwarded copies to a new email address only I could access. Then I called Paige. She answered immediately. Are you home? Yes. Is Brooke there? No. There was a pause. What happened? Can you come over? She arrived 15 minutes later. I had not moved from the table. The laptop was open. Liam's drawing was still on the fridge behind me. I turned the screen toward her. Paige read the hotel confirmation, then looked at me. What is this? I don't know yet. You know exactly what it is. I know what it looks like. She clicked back to the card statement. Airline. Hotel. Spa. Her voice sharpened with each word. During the funeral? Paige. No. Don't page me. She let you stand there alone. I need to be certain. She didn't just cheat. Paige's eyes filled. She made you bury him by yourself. That sentence broke something open in me. I had not cried at the funeral. I had come close, but I had stayed upright because there was always another hand to shake, another person to thank, another decision to make. At the kitchen table, with Paige crying across from me, I folded forward and covered my face. I don't know how long it lasted. Paige moved into the chair beside me and put her arm around my shoulders. She did not tell me everything would be okay. She knew better. When I could speak again, I said, I defended her. I know. I told everyone not to judge her. I know. I said she was too broken to come. Paige looked at the screen. She was broken enough to book a spa. I flinched. Sorry, she said immediately. That was cruel. No, it was accurate. She wanted to call Brooke. I stopped her. You cannot protect her now, Paige said. I'm not protecting her. Then what are you doing? Making sure she can't turn this around. Paige stared at me for a few seconds, then nodded. That was the first moment I understood that grief had not made me powerless. It had made me slow. There was a difference. The next morning, I called Julian. He had been my friend for years and had known both Brooke and me long enough that I trusted him to tell me when I was about to make a mistake. He came over, sat at the kitchen table, and listened without interrupting. When I showed him the hotel confirmation, he rubbed both hands over his face. Jesus. I want to send this to everyone. Don't. I looked at him. You think I should keep covering for her? No. I think you should not make the biggest decision of your life while your son's funeral flowers are still fresh. She is with him right now. I believe you. She told people I made the funeral unsafe for her. I heard that part too. Then why shouldn't they know? Because truth can still hurt you if you throw it like a brick. I hated him for saying that, mostly because I knew he was right. Julian leaned forward. Talk to a lawyer. Save everything. Don't threaten her. Don't empty accounts. Don't post online. If you expose her today, she'll say you're unstable from grief and trying to punish her. Give her less room to rewrite it. I looked toward Liam's drawing on the refrigerator. She already rewrote it. Then build a record she can't argue with. That afternoon, I started a timeline. I wrote down the date and time of the funeral home voicemail. The note Brooke left on the counter. Her texts before and during the service. The service start time printed in Liam's program. The airline purchase. The hotel check-in. The spa charge. The shared email confirmation. I placed the funeral program and printed receipts in a plain manila envelope. It looked almost insulting in its simplicity. My marriage was ending, and all the evidence fit inside something people use to hold tax forms. I also changed the passwords on my personal email and cloud storage. I did not touch Brooke's accounts. I did not track her phone. I did not try to access anything that was not mine. The following morning, I met with a family lawyer. I told her everything. She did not react dramatically. She asked practical questions about our accounts, ownership, debts, insurance, and whether I believe Brooke would move money or destroy records. I don't know what she'll do, I said. That means you assume she may act in her own interest, the lawyer replied. She advised me not to drain joint accounts or cancel cards in a way that could interfere with ordinary expenses. She told me which funds I could safely move, which accounts I could protect, and how to document the charges related to the trip. She also told me to preserve every message. Do not perform for her, she said. Let paperwork do what shouting can't. I filed the initial divorce paperwork that day. I also notified the funeral home in writing that no refunds, changes, or account adjustments should be made without my approval. I did that because one of Brooke's charges had been paid from the same joint account where relatives had sent money to help with Liam's memorial expenses. That detail made me physically ill. It was not just that she had used shared money for the trip. The money had been sitting beside deposits labeled for Liam and memorial help. Even if the exact dollars could not be separated cleanly, the account balance told the story. Our family had helped us bury our son, and Brooke had used that same pool of money to pay for a room with Carter. Later that evening, I found the photograph. It was not on Brooke's page. A restaurant connected to the resort had posted a series of pictures from a live music night. In one of them, Carter was leaning into the frame with a drink in his hand. Only part of the woman beside him was visible. Her face was turned away, but I knew the bracelet on her wrist. Liam had made it for Brooke at daycare. Bright plastic beads. Blue, red, yellow, and one green letter bead that didn't belong because the daycare had run out of the right colors. He had been so proud when he gave it to her. Brooke wore it often. She was wearing it at a resort restaurant while our son's memorial service was beginning. The timestamp on the post was 10:07 a.m. I stared at the bracelet until the colors blurred. When Paige came over, I showed her the photo. She covered her mouth. She wore his bracelet there. I nodded. That was all I could say. The photograph changed something in me. Before that, some damaged part of my brain had still been searching for an explanation. Maybe Carter had joined her unexpectedly. Maybe the reservation was not what it looked like. Maybe she had run away because she was terrified and made a terrible decision after she left. The bracelet ended that. She had taken a piece of Liam with her while choosing not to stand beside him. Brooke returned the next afternoon. I knew she was home because I heard her suitcase wheels catch on the front step. Paige was in the living room with me. I had asked her to stay because I did not trust my own reaction. Brooke opened the door slowly. Her eyes were red. Her hair was pulled back. She wore loose gray clothes and carried herself like someone approaching a hospital room. For a moment, looking at her, I almost doubted what I knew. She looked devastated. Then I noticed the resort luggage tag still attached to her suitcase. She saw Paige and stopped. What is she doing here? Checking on me, I said. Brooke's face tightened. I needed you to give me space. I did. She put down the suitcase and looked at me as though waiting for me to apologize. I know you're angry. I said nothing. You handled everything like a checklist, she continued. The calls, the program, the service. I felt like there was no room for me to fall apart. There was an empty chair beside me. Her eyes filled. That's not fair. I almost laughed. It came out as a breath. Brooke stepped toward me. You have no idea what it felt like for me. You were so cold. She reached for me, then glanced at Paige before wrapping her arms around my shoulders. The timing was so obvious that Paige looked away in disgust. I did not hug Brooke back. She pulled away. What is wrong with you? I studied her face. I wanted to ask whether the spa had helped. I wanted to ask whether Carter knew she was missing the funeral. I wanted to put the photograph in front of her and watch the practiced softness disappear. Instead, I said, I'm tired. Brooke looked relieved. That reaction told me she believed the lie was still safe. She went upstairs to shower. Paige turned to me. How are you doing this? I don't know. You already filed? Yes. Good. I'm going to let her talk. Paige frowned. Why? Because people believe her. Not after they see the receipts. I want them to hear the version she chooses when she thinks there's no evidence. That evening, Brooke called her mother. She did not know I could hear her from the hallway. I couldn't breathe in that house, she said softly. Dylan had taken over everything. He decided what Liam wore, what picture they used, who spoke. I felt erased. That was not true. I had asked her about every decision until she told me to stop asking. She continued. I tried to go, but I knew he would look at me like I had failed. I couldn't do it. There was a pause while Diane spoke. Then Brooke said, I know. I just need him to stop punishing me. I went back downstairs before she could see me. The next day, Brooke made a social media post about Liam. It was a black and white photo of his hand in hers from months earlier. The caption said she could still feel the weight of her palm against his casket and that standing in a room full of people while saying goodbye had changed her forever. She had never touched the casket. She had never entered the room. She wrote about hearing Paige's voice break during her speech. She had not been there to hear it. People filled the comments with sympathy. You were so strong. A mother's love never ends. I saw you holding it together for everyone. That last comment came from someone who had apparently assumed Brooke attended because of the way the post was written. I took screenshots. Then Julian texted me. Okay, I was wrong. She's using your silence. I called him. What changed? The post. She's not just avoiding the truth. She's placing herself inside the funeral. I know. What are you going to do? Let her finish. That night, Diane called and asked us to come to dinner 2 days later. She said the family needed to clear the air. I told her I would be there. Brooke appeared surprised. You're willing to talk? Yes. Her expression softened. I don't want this to become ugly. It already is. She looked down. I know you're hurt. That phrase stayed with me. Not betrayed. Not abandoned. Hurt. As if she had forgotten an anniversary instead of spending our son's funeral in a hotel with another man. The day before the dinner, Carter contacted me. Not directly at first. He sent Julian a message because he knew Julian was connected to both of us. He said Brooke had told him I was becoming controlling and that our marriage had been emotionally over for months. He admitted he knew she was married, which mattered to me. I did not want him recast as an innocent bystander. But he claimed he did not know the funeral was happening during the trip. According to him, Brooke said Liam's service had already been handled privately by my family and that I had made it clear she was not welcome. Julian asked whether Carter would put that in writing. He did. The message was blunt. She told me the funeral was already handled. She said you didn't want her there and that your family had shut her out. I knew she was married. I'm not pretending I didn't. But I did not know she was leaving the actual funeral to be with me. I saved that too. Then I asked Julian not to contact Carter again. I did not need an alliance with the man who had been sleeping with my wife. His confirmation mattered, but it did not erase his part. The family dinner took place at Diane's house. Diane had made too much food, the way people do when they are trying to turn a crisis into something manageable. There was roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans, and a pie nobody touched. My father sat beside me. Paige sat across from Brooke. Julian came because I had asked him to witness what was said. Diane looked uncomfortable with his presence. I thought this was family. He is here for me, I said. Brooke folded her hands in her lap. I don't mind. She said it gently, as if she were the reasonable one. For the first 10 minutes, nobody discussed the reason we were there. Diane asked whether anyone wanted more water. My father moved food around his plate. Paige did not pretend to eat. Finally, Diane put down her fork. We're all hurting. Nobody answered. She looked at me. But Brooke lost a child too, Dylan, you don't get to decide what grief is supposed to look like. I know. You've been shutting her out. Brooke stared at her plate. Diane continued. She told me you made every decision without her. I asked her about the photo. Brooke looked up. You asked me when I could barely function. I asked more than once. You wanted answers. You always want answers. Paige shifted in her chair. I glanced at her, and she stayed quiet. Diane said, this is what I mean. She fell apart, and you treated it like a failure. I told everyone not to judge her. Brooke's eyes filled. You told them I was unstable. I told them you weren't doing well because you weren't there. You made it sound like I abandoned him. The room went still. I looked at her. Didn't you? Brooke's lips parted. I could not walk into that room. Why? Because I knew how you would look at me. How would I look at you? Like this. Her voice cracked. Cold. Suspicious. Like I had already failed some test. Diane reached for her hand. Brooke let out a shaking breath. I needed to grieve somewhere I could breathe. You handled everything like a business meeting. There was no room for me to fall apart. Julian watched me carefully. My father said nothing. I asked Brooke, where were you? She blinked. What? During Liam's funeral? Where were you? I was alone. Where? Why does that matter? Because you're saying I prevented you from grieving. You did. Where were you, Brooke? Diane interrupted. This feels like an interrogation. I turned to her. I protected her grief until I realized she was using it to hide a vacation. Nobody moved. Brooke's face emptied. What are you talking about? I placed the manila envelope on the table. It made almost no sound. I opened it and removed the first page. This is the airline charge from our shared card. Purchased 3 days before the funeral. Brooke stared at the paper. I placed down the next page. This is the hotel authorization from the morning of the service. Diane looked between us. Brooke? Brooke's mouth tightened. I needed to get away. I placed down the booking confirmation. This reservation lists 2 guests. You and Carter. Paige closed her eyes. Diane pulled her hand away from Brooke's. Brooke looked at Julian. You went through my private email? It was sent to our shared household account, I said. The account we both use for bills, school messages, and travel. You had no right to build some case against me while I was grieving. The lawyer disagrees. That was the first time I mentioned the lawyer. Brooke's head snapped toward me. What lawyer? I removed the spa charge. This was paid during the hour before Liam's service. Brooke stood. I am not doing this. My father spoke for the first time. Sit down. He did not raise his voice. Brooke looked at him, then slowly sat. I placed the restaurant photograph on the table. Her bracelet was visible. Paige's voice shook. She wore the bracelet Liam made her. Diane looked at the photo and covered her mouth. Brooke's expression changed from grief to anger. It was already on my wrist. I stared at her. That is your answer? I'm saying you're twisting everything. I placed the funeral program beside the photograph. The service began at 10. The restaurant posted this at 10:07. At 9:48, you texted me that you couldn't be around all that sadness. At 10:07, you were with Carter. Brooke looked around the table. He was helping me. Paige laughed once, without humor. With what? The couple's massage. Paige, stop. No. You stop. I raised my hand slightly. Paige leaned back, furious but silent. Brooke looked at Diane. I was not okay. Carter was the only person who understood how trapped I felt. Diane's voice came out thin. Did you know the funeral was that morning? Brooke stared at her. Of course I knew. The words landed harder than anything else she had said. Diane looked away. I continued. You told Carter the funeral had already happened. Brooke's face changed again. You spoke to him? I have his message. I read it aloud. She told me the funeral was already handled. She said you didn't want her there and that your family had shut her out. Brooke pushed back from the table. He is lying to save himself. He admitted he knew you were married. That doesn't make the rest true. No, I said. The airline charge, hotel booking, spa charge, restaurant photo, and your texts make it true. She started crying then. Not the soft, controlled tears from earlier. Her breathing became uneven, and she pressed both hands to her face. Diane moved toward her, then stopped. Brooke looked at me through her fingers. You planned this. I documented it. You brought everyone here to humiliate me. You brought everyone here to accuse me. This should have been private. Julian spoke quietly. I said the same thing until you posted as if you attended the funeral. Brooke turned toward him. I never said I was there. You wrote that you felt your hand on the casket, he said. You described Paige speaking. I was trying to express what it felt like. You described things you did not experience. Brooke looked back at me. You want everyone to hate me. I shook my head. I wanted everyone to leave you alone because I thought grief had broken you. I stood beside our son without you and defended you every time someone asked where you were. I couldn't be there. You could be at a resort. That is not the same. No, it isn't. My voice stayed calm, but my hands were shaking under the table. You don't get to skip our son's funeral with another man and then make me the villain for standing there alone. Brooke wiped her face. You think this makes you look good? I don't care how I look. You've always cared. I cared enough to lie for you at Liam's funeral. The room went silent. Diane stared at the receipts. Was the trip paid from the memorial account? It was our joint account, Brooke said quickly. I answered before Diane could. It was the account where relatives sent money for funeral expenses. The lawyer has the statements. Brooke stood again. You moved money? I protected what I was legally allowed to protect. I did not empty anything. You froze me out. I separated my personal deposits and documented the rest. Her face hardened. This is financial abuse. The accounts remain accessible as advised by counsel. Every transaction is recorded. For the first time, she seemed to understand that I had not acted impulsively. There would be no dramatic screenshot she could share showing that I had stranded her. No illegal lockout. No threatening messages. No destroyed property. No screaming voicemail. Just documents. She looked at my father. Are you proud of him? Raymond held her gaze. I'm proud he didn't lose control. Then he turned to me. Now they know. Stop talking and let the lawyer do the rest. I nodded. Brooke looked around the table as if waiting for someone to take her side. Diane was crying silently. Julian stared at the untouched food. Paige did not look away. Finally, Diane said, Brooke, tell me this is wrong. Brooke's face crumpled. I was drowning. That is not what I asked. I didn't know how to face it. You knew enough to lie to both men. Mom, you told me Dylan shut you out. He did. Did he tell you not to attend the funeral? Brooke did not answer. Diane's shoulders dropped. That was the moment the room truly turned. Not because I gave a speech. Not because anyone shouted. It turned because Brooke had been given one simple chance to deny the central lie, and she could not. I gathered the papers and placed them back in the envelope. Brooke stared at me. What happens now? The divorce has been filed. Diane gasped softly. Brooke went still. You filed before talking to me. I talked to you for years. I listened to you lie for days. We just lost our son. I know. How can you do this now? Because you used his funeral as cover. She started crying again. I stood. The marriage is over. The lawyer has the statements. I will request reimbursement for the trip through the legal process. Anyone who wants to defend you can do it without calling me. Brooke shook her head. You are cruel. No. I'm ending the story where you get sympathy for abandoning the person you claim to be grieving. My father stood beside me. Paige and Julian followed. We left without dessert, without shouting, and without giving Brooke the scene she had expected. In the car, Paige finally let out the anger she had been holding. I wanted to throw that pie at her. My father looked out the window. Good thing you didn't. I said wanted. You usually confuse that with doing. For the first time in weeks, I almost smiled. It disappeared quickly, but Paige noticed. She took my hand. The fallout was quieter than people imagine. There was no single explosion that ended everything. It came in phone calls, deleted posts, relatives going silent, and messages that began with, I didn't know. Brooke removed the memorial post that night. Before she did, I had already saved it. Diane sent me a message the following afternoon. I should have asked before I accused you. I wanted to believe she was falling apart, not lying. I am sorry. I did not answer immediately. 2 days later, I replied. Thank you. I need space. Please direct anything about the divorce through Brooke or the attorneys. Do not contact me to explain her choices. Diane respected that. Some relatives apologized. Some simply stopped calling. A few sent messages saying the truth should have remained private. To them, I sent the same response. Brooke publicly implied I excluded her from Liam's funeral. I am not discussing private details beyond correcting that false claim. Please do not contact me about the marriage. I did not post the hotel receipt online. I did not publish Carter's message. I did not share intimate information. I sent a brief timeline only to relatives who had directly accused me or pressured me to apologize. Julian helped me keep it short. Date of service. Brooke's message declining to attend. Travel charges and booking dates. Her public post implying attendance. No insults. No commentary. Just facts. Carter ended things with Brooke within the week. He sent me one final message through Julian. I know saying sorry means nothing. I believed what I wanted to believe. I knew she was married, and that part is on me. I did not know about the funeral. I did not respond. He was right about one thing. His apology meant nothing to me. Brooke had lied to him, but he had still chosen to be involved with a married woman whose child had just died. He did not become decent simply because the truth made him uncomfortable. Through the lawyers, Brooke initially denied that the trip had anything to do with the affair. Then she called it an emotional support trip. Then she claimed the charges were ordinary marital expenses because we were still married when they occurred. The labels changed. The dates did not. My lawyer requested that the travel expenses be considered during the financial settlement. I was warned that reimbursement was not automatic and that divorce law was not designed to punish adultery in the dramatic way people expect. That was fine. I did not need a judge to declare her a bad person. I needed the accounts protected, the records preserved, and the marriage ended. Brooke moved in with Diane for a while. Diane did not cut her off. I never expected her to. Brooke was still her daughter, and Liam had still been her grandson. Families do not become emotionally simple because someone produces receipts. But Diane stopped defending her to me. That mattered. There were also people who tried to soften what Brooke had done. They said she had been in shock. They said losing a child can make people self-destruct. They said perhaps the affair had been an escape from unbearable pain. Maybe some of that was true. It still did not change the choices. Brooke knew the funeral date. She knew the service time. She left before it. She told me she was too shattered to attend. She told Carter the funeral had already happened. She spent money from our joint account. She returned and blamed me. Then she wrote herself into memories she did not live. Pain may explain why someone reaches for an escape. It does not require everyone else to accept the lie that follows. The hardest part was not the divorce. The hardest part was coming home each day to the quiet. I would hear the refrigerator motor click on and remember Liam asking why it made monster sounds. I would find one of his socks behind the dryer. I would open a drawer and see a sheet of dinosaur stickers he had been saving. The betrayal was sharp, but grief was everywhere. For a while, I was angry that people kept asking how I was handling the marriage when the marriage was not the worst thing I had lost. Brooke could leave. Carter could disappear. Diane could apologize. Lawyers could divide money. None of them could change the empty blue cereal bowl in the cabinet. I started grief counseling because my father asked me once, very quietly, whether I planned to survive what had happened or merely remain standing. That was the longest sentence he had spoken to me in weeks. The counselor did not tell me to forgive Brooke. She did not tell me anger was unhealthy. She asked me what I was protecting when I stayed silent. At first, I said Liam. Then I realized I had also been protecting the version of my marriage that existed before I saw the hotel receipt. As long as I did not confront Brooke, part of me could pretend there had been some explanation waiting. There wasn't. The truth was smaller and uglier than a grand explanation. Brooke wanted comfort without accountability. She wanted Carter to believe she was trapped. She wanted me to believe she was shattered. She wanted her family to believe I had pushed her away. She wanted strangers online to believe she had stood beside Liam's casket. Each audience received a different version. The timeline was the only place all the versions met. Months into the divorce, Brooke asked to speak to me without lawyers. I refused at first. Then she sent a message saying she wanted to apologize for the funeral, not negotiate the settlement. I agreed to a short phone call. Her voice sounded different. Less polished. Tired. I know you think I chose him over Liam, she said. You did. I chose not to face what was happening. You knew what time the funeral started. I know. You left anyway. I know. There was a long silence. Then she said, I kept thinking if I went somewhere else, I could be someone else for 2 days. I closed my eyes. You could have gone anywhere alone. I know. You could have told me you couldn't walk into the room, and I would have sat outside with you. I know. You could have told Carter the truth. I know. Her voice broke. I don't have a reason that makes it better. No. I did love Liam. I never said you didn't. You told everyone what I did. I corrected what you told them about me. It destroyed my relationship with my family. No, what you did damaged your relationship with them. The evidence removed your ability to blame me for it. She was quiet. Then she said, I hate that you're right. That's not my problem anymore. She apologized. I believed she was sorry. I also believed she was sorry after the lie stopped working. Both things could be true. The call did not change the divorce. It did not make me feel victorious. It did not close some emotional circle. It simply confirmed that there was no hidden fact that would transform her choice into something I could live with. The settlement process continued. The trip expenses were accounted for during negotiations. I recovered part of what had been spent, though not all of it. The exact amount mattered less than having it formally recorded instead of erased as a normal vacation. Brooke stopped claiming I had banned her from the funeral. That mattered more. I kept Liam's drawing on the refrigerator. The dinosaur magnet still holds it in place, though the paper has started to curl at the corners. The bracelet he made for Brooke was eventually returned to me through Diane. I did not ask how she got it. I keep it in the same envelope as his hospital bracelet and one copy of the funeral program. Some days I open the envelope. Most days I don't. Paige still checks on me without making it obvious. She comes over with groceries and claims she bought too much. My father calls every Sunday and asks practical questions until one of us says Liam's name. Julian never again tells me the truth should stay private when a lie is being used publicly. He also reminds me that restraint was not the same as surrender. He was right about that. I did not expose Brooke because I wanted applause. There was no applause. There was a stunned dinner table, a stack of receipts, and a family forced to look at something none of us wanted to believe. I exposed her because she turned my silence into evidence against me. She made my protection look like guilt. She made my composure look like cruelty. She made her absence my fault. Most of all, she tried to place herself inside Liam's final goodbye after choosing not to be there. I could not stop her from leaving. I could not stop her from lying to Carter. I could not stop her from spending the money or writing the post. But I could stop the lie from becoming the family's permanent version of what happened. I lost my son that week. I lost my wife too. But I refused to lose the truth. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.